No one expected this to be gentle, but no one expected it to be this one-sided either. The arena came alive for the same reason it always does when Paddy Pimblett walks out. Noise, belief, and the promise that chaos might win again. The smile, the swagger, the sense that momentum itself could carry him through one more test. Across the cage stood a man who doesn't believe in momentum. Justin Gaethje doesn't chase moments. He erases them. That contrast was the fight before the fight ever started, and once the door closed, it became clear which philosophy UFC 324 was about to reward. This main event wasn't booked to be subtle. It was hype versus experience, volatility versus pressure, youth and unpredictability against a veteran who has built a career on making opponents pay for every second they spend inside the cage. On paper, it looked like risk. In reality, it was a lesson waiting to happen, because this wasn't just Paddy Pimblett's biggest opportunity, it was Justin Gaethje's kind of night. Pimblett came in riding a wave few fighters ever experience. Undefeated in the UFC, a fan base that followed him anywhere, a reputation for finding a way when things got uncomfortable. Every fight added another layer to the idea that he was different, immune to the rules that slow everyone else down. Gaethje came in with none of that romance. He came in with scars. He came in with rounds. He came in with proof. Years of fighting the most dangerous men in the division had stripped his approach down to something brutally simple: break the other man's rhythm, damage his base, and force him to operate under pressure he can't escape. Gaethje doesn't need you to make mistakes. He makes the fight expensive until mistakes appear on their own. From the opening seconds, that dynamic showed itself. Paddy looked fast, loose, confident. He bounced, switched stances, tested range, tried to set a pace that felt familiar to him. The crowd responded immediately. This was his environment. This was where belief grows. Gaethje didn't react. He stood planted, eyes level, absorbing information. No rush, no theatrics, just pressure waiting to be applied at the right moment. When he stepped forward, it wasn't to impress, it was to close doors. And once doors start closing, the cage gets very small very quickly. The first exchanges didn't decide anything, but they told a story. Gaethje wasn't biting on feints. He wasn't overcommitting. Every time Pimblett tried to create chaos, Gaethje answered with structure, short combinations, hard kicks, pressure that didn't spike. It accumulated. This wasn't dominance yet, but it was direction. What made the early minutes uncomfortable wasn't damage, it was control. Gaethje was deciding where the fight happened. Pimblett was deciding how to react. That difference matters more than highlights, especially over 5 rounds. And then came the first real moment where the energy shifted. Gaethje started touching the legs, not flashy kicks, punishing ones, the kind that don't draw gasps from the crowd, but quietly steal mobility. Pimblett's movement didn't stop, but it changed. The bounce became work. The exits became straighter. The margin for creativity shrank. That's how Gaethje fights mature. He doesn't take things away suddenly. He taxes them until they disappear. The crowd didn't panic yet. Paddy was still in it, still smiling between exchanges, still trying to pull Gaethje into moments instead of minutes. But Gaethje wasn't there to trade energy. He was there to drain it. And as the round ended, one thing was already clear. This wasn't going to be about who had the better moments. It was going to be about who could survive the cost of them. Because Justin Gaethje wasn't trying to win a fight quickly. He was trying to make sure that by the time the later rounds arrived, there would be only one man still capable of choosing what happened next. And that's when UFC 324 truly began. By the second round, the fight stopped feeling like a showcase and started feeling like work. Paddy Pimblett was still moving, still trying to create moments, but the rhythm was gone. Every exchange now had a price attached to it. Gaethje wasn't chasing the head. He was targeting the foundation: legs, body, balance, confidence. The kind of damage that doesn't end a fight immediately, but changes how the next 10 minutes feel. This is where the difference between hype and experience becomes impossible to hide. Pimblett thrives when fights are chaotic, when scrambles happen, when instincts take over. Gaethje refused to give him that space. He pressured without rushing, cut angles instead of following, and forced Pimblett to fight at a pace that felt wrong. The cage wasn't a boundary anymore. It was a wall. The first knockdown didn't come from a wild exchange. It came from accumulation, a hard leg kick that froze Pimblett for half a second, a short combination as he tried to reset, a clean shot that dropped him just long enough to announce something had changed. Paddy got back up quickly, but the message was delivered. From that moment on, Gaethje didn't just control the fight, he owned the tone of it. Every time Pimblett tried to surge forward, Gaethje met him with resistance. Every attempt to reset was punished. Clinches became suffocating instead of strategic. What looked messy on the outside was methodical on the inside. Gaethje wasn't fighting for aesthetics, he was fighting for exhaustion. The third round offered Pimblett his best window back into the fight. A brief rally, a clean shot that momentarily stunned Gaethje. The crowd roared. For a second, the momentum everyone believed in felt alive again. And then Gaethje answered immediately. No panic, no retreat. He stood his ground and fired back harder. That exchange may have been the most important moment of the entire fight because it showed Pimblett something brutal. Even his best shots weren't enough to change the direction anymore. From there, the fight became a test of durability and will. Gaethje walked forward through exchanges that would have stopped lesser fighters. Pimblett kept swinging, kept scrambling, kept trying to manufacture chaos. But the chaos never belonged to him. It belonged to Gaethje. By the championship rounds, the physical difference was unmistakable. Pimblett's face told the story before the commentary did. Swelling, blood, fatigue. Gaethje looked marked too, but composed, comfortable, like a man exactly where he expected to be. This wasn't dominance built on one moment, it was dominance built on minutes. Gaethje's pressure didn't spike, it suffocated. He mixed strikes, leaned in the clinch, punished exits, and forced Pimblett to fight at the edge of exhaustion to do. He took momentum, stripped it down, and proved that over 5 rounds, chaos doesn't beat pressure, belief doesn't beat experience, and excitement doesn't beat someone who's willing to make a fight hurt for as long as it takes. But the most important part of this story wasn't fully visible yet, because after the fight, Gaethje revealed something that reframed the entire performance and explained why he looked so sharp, so composed, and so in control, something that had quietly changed the way he fights forever. The fight ended, the scores were read, and the immediate conversation stayed where it always does. Damage, domination, momentum, lost. But as the post-fight interviews unfolded, another layer quietly surfaced, one that made the entire performance make sense in hindsight. Justin Gaethje wasn't just fighting differently, he was seeing differently. In the interviews after UFC 324, Gaethje spoke about something he had lived with for years, but rarely centered in public conversation. For a long stretch of his career, he had been fighting with compromised vision, blurred distance, inconsistent clarity, timing that relied more on instinct than precision. Then he had corrective eye surgery, and according to Gaethje himself, it changed everything. For most fans, it sounded like a footnote. For fighters, it was a revelation. Vision isn't just about seeing punches, it's about reading micro-movements, recognizing feints, judging distance, and reacting before chaos fully forms. In elite MMA, milliseconds matter, inches matter. The difference between clean pressure and reckless aggression often comes down to what you can process in real time. Against Paddy Pimblett, that difference was everywhere. Gaethje wasn't overreacting. He wasn't biting on feints. He wasn't charging blindly into exchanges. He read entries early, cut angles decisively, and punished exits with timing that looked almost unfair. Where Pimblett relied on unpredictability, Gaethje relied on clarity. This wasn't the wild brawler of years past. This was a veteran who could finally trust what he was seeing. And once that clicked, the fight stopped being competitive in the ways people expected. Every time Pimblett tried to change rhythm, Gaethje adjusted instantly. Every attempt to draw him into chaos was met with structure. The pressure didn't just feel physical, it felt informed, calculated, almost calm. That's what made the performance unsettling. Gaethje wasn't fighting emotionally. He wasn't chasing the crowd. He wasn't trying to prove toughness. He was executing with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where he was in the cage and exactly what was coming next. For Pimblett, that made the night brutal in a different way. Hype fighters often survive on surprise, on moments where opponents misread intention or hesitate just long enough for chaos to take over. Gaethje never hesitated. He saw the openings early and closed them before they could become opportunities. and the more Pimblett tried to force moments, the clearer the gap became. The post-fight interviews reflected that reality. Gaethje wasn't celebratory in a loud way. He didn't boast. He didn't mock. He spoke like a man who had been exactly where he expected to be, calm, grounded, focused on what comes next. Pimblett, on the other hand, showed respect. No excuses, no controversy, just acknowledgement. He had taken the biggest step of his career and found the ceiling. Public reaction followed quickly. Some fans praised the fight as a war. Others focused on how severe the damage was. Many pointed out that this was the first time Pimblett had been forced to fight someone who didn't fade, didn't panic, and didn't give him space to be creative. And then the conversation circled back to Gaethje's evolution. This wasn't just a win over a popular name. It was confirmation that Gaethje had entered a new phase of his career, less reckless, more precise, and now physically aligned with the way he had always wanted to fight. The surgery didn't make him tougher, it made him efficient. And efficiency, paired with pressure, is one of the most unforgiving combinations in the sport. UFC 324 didn't end Paddy Pimblett's rise, but it did redefine it. No longer untouchable, no longer protected by momentum, now measured against the reality of elite competition. And Justin Gaethje, he walked away not just as the winner of a brutal main event, but as proof that evolution doesn't always look flashy. Sometimes it looks like clarity, sometimes it looks like patience, sometimes it looks like a fighter who finally sees the fight the way it's always been happening. And once you see it clearly, there's no going back. When the night ended and the crowd filtered out, the result didn't settle quietly. It followed both men out of the arena, into interviews, into headlines, and into the future paths of their careers. For Paddy Pimblett, this was the first time momentum didn't save him. Up until UFC 324, every rough moment in his career had come with an escape hatch, a scramble, a burst, a moment of chaos that flipped danger into opportunity. Against Justin Gaethje, that escape never opened. Every time Pimblett tried to manufacture disorder, he ran into someone who had already lived through worse and learned how to stay composed inside it. That changes how a fighter is viewed. Pimblett didn't quit. He didn't break mentally. He stayed in the fight until the end, but toughness alone doesn't separate contenders from champions. Consistency does. Control does. The ability to impose your game even when the fight stops going your way does. UFC 324 showed exactly where Pimblett stands right now. Dangerous, durable, marketable, but no longer mysterious, no longer protected by the idea that belief alone can override experience. From here on out, every matchup will be framed differently. Every opponent will know that if they can survive the early chaos, the later rounds belong to them. That's not a death sentence. It's a recalibration. For Justin Gaethje, the night did something else entirely. It reminded everyone why he's still here. This wasn't Gaethje chasing relevance or clinging to past violence. This was a refined version of a fighter who has learned when to push and when to wait. The pressure was still there. The damage was still there. But it was guided, purposeful, controlled. The eye surgery story gave fans language for what they were seeing, but the truth is deeper than vision alone. Gaethje fought like someone who trusts his reads, his timing, and his endurance. Someone who knows exactly how long he can hold a pace and exactly when to turn it up. That kind of confidence doesn't come from hype, it comes from rounds. The public reaction reflected that divide. Many fans praised Pimblett's heart, but acknowledged the gap. Analysts pointed out how cleanly Gaethje dismantled the parts of Pimblett's game that rely on chaos. Others focused on the brutality of the damage and what it means to step up too quickly against someone who doesn't fade. There was no controversy about the decision, no robbery talk, no excuses that stuck. That's when a loss becomes permanent. For the UFC, the fight served its purpose perfectly. It tested a rising star in the harshest environment possible and reaffirmed a veteran as a true standard of the division. It showed that popularity doesn't erase levels and that evolution matters more than reputation. UFC 324 will be remembered as the night Paddy Pimblett became a real lightweight contender, not because he won, but because he learned exactly what separates him from the top. And it will be remembered as the night Justin Gaethje proved that his most dangerous version might not be the wild one fans fell in love with years ago, but the one who sees clearly, pressures patiently, quickly and breaks opponents without needing chaos to do it. The fight ended when the bell rang, but its consequences are just beginning. That's what really happened at UFC 324.